often talk about the Middle East as if it's a homogenous region. I know that Iran is majority, I say Shia Muslim. We have a lot of countries that are Sunni Muslim. There has been conflict, obviously, between many of these countries. How likely do you feel that other Arab nations would get into a conflict or are inclined to take sides in this particular situation?
So it's interesting. You said Arab nations, and I think that there's an important distinction there. So this is undoubtedly an Iranian initiative. Whether they signed, whether they gave the operation the green light, whether there is hard evidence of direct Iranian involvement remains to be seen. And I think that's something we'll learn in the coming weeks and months. But there is no doubt this is inspired by the regime in Tehran. And Iran, of course, is not an Arab country, right? It's a Shiite country. It's a Muslim country, but not an Arab country. And what we've seen in the past several years with the advent of the Abraham Accords is Israel kind of coalescing in a coalition of Arab countries, moderate Gulf Arab countries, like the UAE and Bahrain and others. And there was a joke going around in Israel. I don't know if it's relevant today, but essentially Israel has become the newest Sunni Arab country in the region. That is to say that they've thrown their lot in with the moderate Sunni Arab states, which was something unimaginable a decade ago, but happened in 2020 with the Abraham Accords. And essentially this divide of this Iranian Islamist Shiite movement that is swallowing up countries. If you look at Iran, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Lebanon is practically a failed state that's being governed by a Shiite extremist Islamic group, Hezbollah. There is this sort of image that's crystallizing of moderate or democratic, in Israel's case, countries that tend towards the Sunni moderate way of life, or Jewish in Israel's case, and then facing off against a very radical Islamist movement that is funded and inspired by the Islamic regime of Iran.
Talk about the importance of Qatar. Obviously, it's been a factor in having a direct line to Hezbollah and Hamas. It's an ally of the U.S. What are you watching right now? Because that's one of the countries we haven't directly talked about, but it does seem to be playing this brokerage, linchpin role.
Sure. So Qatar, the U.S. relations with Qatar are very complicated and are only going to be further complicated by the events of the past couple of weeks. Qatar is home to Hamas leadership and diaspora. That is to say, some of the most troubling statements have been made from luxury condominiums in Doha. And I think it's kind of this sick relationship that the U.S. has been a party to, where we have this frenemy in Qatar. We have a massive base in Qatar. We have semi-friendly relations with the country, and yet they continue to harbor the terrorists and the leadership of terrorist groups. And it's kind of like the arsonist playing firefighter, right? You have Qatar coming in and negotiating the release of prisoners. Well, there's a reason that they're able to negotiate with Hamas, and that's because they're very close to Hamas, right? And that's not, I think, especially after the events of October, that have unfolded since October 7th, I think everyone can fairly say that being associated with an organization that can commit those heinous crimes is not something that anyone should want to do going forward. And so I hope that there is a reevaluation of U.S. relations with Qatar and Qatari approach towards Hamas.